on level, simply because it's geared a certain way for your AP exam. And I do it on level. I pretty much talk about being a detective, and history and detective work is very, very similar. And that's why I like it so much. For you guys, we're going to do this version we call Hippo.
How to hippo?
How to Hippo.
What I call a hippo is when you only show this much of your face in a picture. Like, you know, when people snap and they're like, I call that the hippo.
Oh, really? When it's like down here?
Yeah,
It's
when
coming
they
out of
only
water?
show this much of their face. It's like when a hippo comes out of water, you know?
So I used to, last year I did hippie. Now I'm doing hippo. So I changed it. If you ever see this, you may see it show up. If it says hippie, just know like, oh, Anderson didn't get that one updated yet. So the Y and the O, a little bit different. I like the O, I think, better. So reading like a historian, here's hippo, and there's moto moto. I worked really hard on trying to get moto moto like sound to play.
There's a TikTok dance to it.
Is there? Okay. So we love that scene, but I couldn't do it. So at least I got pictures of moto moto there. So HIPPO stands historical context, intended audience, purpose, point of view, outside information. We're going to use this primarily with our DBQs on the exam. That's where you're going to see it most often. However, with some of the SAQs, you'll have documents, and you may want to use the HIPPO for that. Throughout the year, when I give you primary sources, which your assignment that is due Monday is primary sourcing, in which you'll use the HIPPO. It's basically just a skill of how to evaluate documents. Now, it's very helpful in class. It's helpful outside of class. So any type of advertisement you see, anything that comes across, using these skills can help you just everything from buying a car to evaluating a political cartoon. Like it is generally helpful, and I like it a lot. It's much more like, okay, trying to understand who's trying to manipulate you and how and why. So here we go. So we're going to run in order. What time do we end? 12:12?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So historical context. So on all these slides, you'll see the one from the HIPPO down here. What is the context in which it was written? What is the bigger picture in which it fits? So the historical context, pretty familiar with it. This is one in which you look at it and you're just trying to place it within our time frame. This is where a timeline can be helpful too. When you see this, you see a date, try to go to that timeline that we're memorizing and place it on that timeline so you have some context for that. So this is the setting for an event that occurs, and it will have an impact on the reliance of the event. Context is an important factor to consider when examining a document or historical character or time period. History should be looked at through the lens of historical context. One of my favorite quotes from C.S. Lewis, he talks about chronological snobbery. We don't want to be snobs chronologically. So it's very easy to look back and judge people in the past and think you're better than them. And that's what we have to be careful of. And historical context really helps us with that. So that's the first one. Thought I saw a hand go hand. You good?
I'll take a picture of it.
Okay. Intended audience. So now, historical context, you use that timeline, you look at what you know, you can kind of get there. Intended audience is going to require you to look at the text and evaluate it, make some educated guesses on it. So who is this written for? Who is the audience? So these next ones, I'm going to give you kind of what you should write. Because on the DBQ, you're going to get points specifically for this, and you want to make it very clear that you're doing it. You're evaluating it in this way. You're HIPPOing the document. So each historical document, political cartoon, graph or chart, textbook has an intended audience. And as a student, you should recognize who and why was a document written to a specific group of people. This is one that's very good today. You get that text message. Are you guys getting political text messages yet? No? Where's my phone? I'm getting them. And immediately you can use kind of intended audience. Okay, who's it coming from? See if I didn't delete it. Let's see if you can get it. There we go. Good. Got this one today. It's 6:48 a.m. Thank you for that. The radical left threatens our future. Their plans to raise taxes would devastate hardworking middle-class families. Do you agree? Reply yes or no. So who's that coming from?
The right.
Okay, it's coming from the right. Okay, I'm talking about the radical left. So intended audience, so they're writing to me, so I'm evaluating it, but I'm also looking, okay, How are they, like, what are they trying to do with this? I got other ones that were just about, hey, we're taking a poll, but you can tell from the language, you know, what are they trying to do with that poll, who are they intending to affect? So with this, I want you to like have this sentence down, because this is it's formulaic, but it's what they're looking for. It makes it very clear that you're evaluating it for this. The author's intended audience was blank, and this is shown by blank. So this second part is really important. If you, on the DBQ, are writing and trying to show your knowledge of the document, and you just say the author's intended audience was Tories, okay? People loyal to the British Empire, but you don't say, and this is shown by blank, you're not gonna get credit for it. You gotta show why you know that, what's the evidence that shows it, okay? So
you
make
just
sure,
have to prove it?
yes.
Okay.
So you gotta prove why that's the intended audience, not just state it. Good? Okay, why was this written? What was the goal? This is the purpose. Every historical source has a given purpose, and students should be able to explain to the reader what was a particular document created, why it was created. For this one, you write the author's purpose in writing was to blank, and is apparent by blank. So this could be, the author's purpose in writing was to encourage abolitionists to vote, and it's apparent by these specific wording and what they used in the text. So historical context, intended audience, then purpose. Intended audience and purpose can feel a little bit similar, like you're driving to kind of the same thing, but you want to kind of make it clear which one you're doing and pursuing by defining it. Good on that slide? Okay. Point of view. Identify who the author is and how the author's personhood might have impacted what they wrote. So this is going to require some outside knowledge. Sometimes you can extrapolate it from the text or from the description. Remember, whenever they give you a quote, they always have who said it and where and when. Again, you don't want to tell what their personhood is. You're going to use your knowledge of it to explain how it may influence the document. So this is kind of this right here is great to have the run through. And we saw this a little bit in the SAQ that we just stopped the video, and I forwarded Henning and said, hey, pay attention to this. When you look at who wrote it, immediately think of their gender, what's their profession, what was their social class, what was their religion. And any of those you can use to describe, hey, here's their personhood and how it may have influenced, okay? I underlined may because we don't want to be, egotistical in terms of saying, like, declaring how it affected it. You want to say, this is how it may have done it. So, in reading historical documents, this is how we do it and why I love it. I love fiction, and I like reading. The hardest part for English class for me was always interpreting those documents, interpreting what was written, and coming up with some reason for it that I would have no idea if the author really meant that.
Claim an argument.
Okay? So, that always rubbed me like, I'm very literal with that. And so that's why you want to say may. So, social class, profession, gender, religion, training yourself to work with this as we do our primary sources. So your homework for Monday is going to give you like 8 primary sources, and you have to hippo them. But I tell you to choose 2 of the hippo for each. Okay?
Is that
Yeah.
Monday night's homework or due?
Do Monday by class time. So what I encourage you to do, because some of them will lend it pretty easily, historical context, and you can grab that really quickly, but work on developing some of these other ones. So, and there's some that'll lend itself, be like, okay, there's no way I can figure out the point of view here, or it's gonna be very hard to, so I'm gonna do this one instead. But don't try to take the easy way out on all of them. Some of them, try some of these harder ones you're not great at, so you can see how you're doing with it.
So in a sense, are you kind of looking for a bias on those?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly, very good. So the reason they wrote it was for this reason. So, Thomas Jefferson, as being a deist, upper class, we know basically that he favored the French. So his point of view in writing this would be affected by that. So yeah, basically a bias. Good. outside information. So I said last year I did hippie, and with hippie, the last one, the why is just why. Why is this important? I think that's good, but as I kind of researched and looked at it, putting the O on the end in which you look for outside information is a little bit more challenging, but that's a skill they're looking at on the AP exam, is can you bring outside information that isn't in the question or in the text, and apply it. And if you do that, you'll score higher. So that's why we moved to HIPPO for this. Explain to the reader one piece of outside information that's not contained in the document, but can be spurred from the document. In other words, you're reading the Declaration of Independence, and you're using that, and you're like, this spurs the Articles of Confederation. Okay? And so you're gonna move into that, bring in that information from it, to be a part of it, showing your well-roundedness, showing your ability to use that, the complexity of thought that you have, really, really good. So that's why we did it. And on your homework, I actually have you choose two of the HIP, H-I-P-P, and for every one, I want an O, outside information. And again, the reason we're learning that timeline, so you have something. You see it in that timeline, I can bring this in, same time, does it apply? Yes, no, if it does, I'll bring it in. Matt?
So would this count as like evidence beyond the docs and the DBQ?
Exactly. Yep, and that's why we're doing it, because they're consistently looking for that, and that's an immediate point. If you get that, boom, we got another point. So, no UBIs, useless bits of information. Make sure that your outside information helps support your argument. So if you're just like, if you see it and you think of our timeline and you're like, oh, this is around the same time, I'll throw it in. That's not gonna get you the point. Like you gotta be able to show relation to it, which is why we're doing some of the history in the making essays, the 6 degrees of separation, that kind of train you to think along those themes and bring them in. Yeah.
So if you really genuinely just don't have any outside information, should you throw something in or just
No.
not even put it in?
So what's nice about the DBQ is you can give any one of these or two of these, and you're good to go to satisfy that requirement. So you want to go to the one that is most natural, that you can make the strongest connection. So now with each of these, for the homework, this first homework, you're turning it in, and I want to see it. Pretty much moving forward, you're not going to turn it in online. We'll just come in and discuss it. So far, my AP classes, I haven't really had someone who's not doing the work. So as long as that continues with you guys, then I can be sure, hey, you're doing it, and now we can talk about it. So, all right, so let's HIPPO this. We're going to do some modern stuff here. So, what do you want to read first? What are you always looking for? The source, okay? So you always come down here. So the source is here. June 10th, 2020, NASCAR statement on the Confederate flag. So what's that tell you right away?
What's going on around the world and why they need to make this
Okay. Good. So who's writing it? So you know right away the author it's coming from. Say that again?
What the subject is.
Okay, the subject, NASCAR, can you place them anywhere on a political spectrum? Well, they're sports, right? So you immediately put it there, so that's good.
They're more conservative.
Okay, they tend to be more conservative. Center of the country, that's where they land typically. And it's a statement on what? Okay, now the Confederate flag in June of 2020, that gives you some historical context different from if this was like 1850, right? 1860. So what was going on this June with the Confederate flag?
People were doing it in opposition of the Black Lives Matter.
Okay, good. Opposition, like Black Lives Matter, other people hold the Confederate flag. All right, so let's read the quote. Drake, can you read that for us?
Yeah. The presence of a Confederate flag at NASCAR events runs contrary to our commitment to providing a welcoming and inclusive environment to all fans, our competitors, and our industry. Display of the Confederate flag will be prohibited from all NASCAR events and property.
Okay, so you got the quote. Let's HIPPO it. Historical context. We did a little bit. Someone sum that up for me. Yep. What would you say for this historical context? What was going on this summer? Okay, Black Lives Matter movement. Good. So you could bring up that in the summer of 2020, we had racial protests with the Black Lives Matter movement. So you bring that up for historical context. Good. Intended audience. How would you answer this? Who was it written for? Okay, it was written for people bringing the flags. Okay. So what were you saying, Sarah?
Just like for the people, like NASCAR people.
okay? It's specifically, so it's directly to NASCAR people bring the flags. But is it to anyone else?
Everyone said it was wrong.
Okay,
Raised it up in the first place.
okay, very good. So we talk about this, and we've talked about this staff meeting, it's like, we'll talk about kind of like the COVID theater. Like, there's certain things you have to do to appease people that might look and be like, you didn't do this, okay? So that's some of their audience, right? Like, they're writing this to the people that are bringing the flag, they're also writing it to show people that would criticize them because they allow the flag, to show them, no, we too are racially sensitive, and they don't wanna lose that funding, they don't wanna lose that advertisement, so you could bring that in as well. So you could do both. Obviously saying it was for the people that brought the flags, great, a little more complexity if you go to the other point about, and we know from that time, there could be boycotts, and so they're also writing it to appease people that may boycott NASCAR, okay? We're gonna move on to the next one. Okay, so we just did the first two. All right, political cartoons, we'll see them a lot. Let's hippo this. So let's jump down to point of view. What's the point of view of this?
It's from the left.
From the left, how do you know?
Because it's making fun of them.
Okay, all right. So if you're writing this, remember, you gotta say who it's from and why. So let's say it a little bit differently than making fun of Trump.
Saying that he doesn't listen to science.
Okay, so we're specifically attacking him on the issue of science. He's listening to his gut. This is a scientist and he's ignoring him here. Okay, point of view, purpose.
To show that he's not
Okay.
listening to science.
Okay, so see how they're similar? So how can we differentiate that? So the point of view, it's coming from someone on the left. And you could show that by, that it's criticizing and making fun, Trump and his view, on science. Purpose of it. So let's go a little deep. Go ahead.
To move you to the left.
Okay. Move you to the left by saying what? What's it kind of saying?
That he
He's arrogant.
yeah.
Okay, good. He's arrogant. That's a great one. Okay. What else is it saying about science?
That science is the one that's right and not.
Okay. So this is a classic logical fallacy. The left uses it constantly to say the right doesn't listen to science. Like, we listen to science. And we're doing it right now with the forest fires. Okay? And we saw it happen. Like, there's a science of maintaining your forests, but there's a science of climate control. So which expert are you listening to? So, all right, so you've got your homework. Yeah, we'll kind of touch back on this. The last one was gonna be this guy right here. We're gonna look at that. But we'll come back to it, so. Okay, homework is not till Monday. Tomorrow we have a nice day. We're gonna come in and watch a little bit of John Adams. That'll be a nice little break for you, and you're good to go. Hello, sir, how you doing? Good.